One of the most important parts of a great Nancy Drew game, and honestly any game for that matter, is the setting that you're dropped into. Most of the best games wouldn't have been able to pull off the stories or characters that they introduced to us without a solid location to place them in. So today, to show off that importance, I'll be ranking every single Nancy Drew game setting from worst to best. I'll be ranking them with a number of criteria, like, for example, how well do they mesh with the story and how well they're designed, but since this is my ranking, my personal opinion did have quite a bit of influence on the list as well. This is going to be an extremely long ranking, so without further ado, let's start off with number 33. Starting us off in last place, we have Paso Del Mar High School from Secrets Can Kill and Secrets Can Kill Remastered. I know I shouldn't be too super hard on this game, seeing as it was the first, and they were still trying to figure out exactly what they were doing, plus they didn't have, all the technology that they needed to make the games that, the locations that they've got now, seeing as it was the late 90s, but still, even with that, I'm trying to look at these objectively, without looking at graphics or time periods, just how well they were designed, how well they work with the story, and really, in my opinion at least, there's not much here for Paso Del Mar, or the whole town really. There are a few extra locations. It's Florida, but it doesn't really feel like Florida, if that makes sense. It just kind of ends up being a wasted location. There's the high school, which ended up feeling a little bit bland to me. All the halls are the same, which it captured a high school very well. That's what a lot of high schools look like. It's not supposed to be exciting, but it just isn't very appealing. You just go from character to character to character, and there's not much exploration. I did like Aunt Eloise's house, and I did like the diner, Maxine's, but there wasn't enough there in either of those locations to really outweigh Paso Del Mar. It's really not a bad location, but it's certainly not the best by any stretch of the imagination either. In 32nd place, we've got the Technology of Tomorrow Today Lab from The Deadly Device. I feel like a lot of people are going to get mad at me about this one, because this is a game that's very well liked, and I agree it's got a lot of merit, but really the location is not the best part. It's very dark, you're very closed in, and the day-night cycle was nice, but it feels so samey. Like every room is very similar, and it's a workplace, so I understand they're trying to go for the high technology workplace, but it just does not appeal to me. It's pretty low on my list. I think the biggest thing is wasted potential. You'll see that a lot with these lower few that I've put down here. I feel like they wasted a lot of potential. This is set in the Colorado mountains, which Colorado is beautiful. If you've never been to Colorado, the mountains they've got are absolutely beautiful, and it could be an excellent location for a Nancy Drew game, but you don't even get to go outside. The only time you really see it is during the day-night change, which, I guess that kind of, you're supposed to be trapped, kind of snowed in this area, but it really needed an outside segment or something, and it's not snowy, like, it's not one of the cold games, as, like I like to call it, the snowy games like Icicle Creek and Treasure in the Royal Tower. Like, they weren't going for snowy, it feels like they didn't want to make an outside, so they didn't, and I understand a lot of people like this, but it's very low in my opinion. Coming up next in 31st place, we've got the WWB Studios, and plus the tiny bit of New York that you get in Stay Tuned for Danger. This is another one that goes with both of the last ones, with wasted potential as well as, the limitations of the time. I understand that, but New York, it fits New York. It's they did a fairly good job, but there could have been more. And there could have been more with the TV studio also. It just feels very, very small compared to what we saw. It actually almost feels smaller than the high school from Secrets Can Kill, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of unexplored areas, and Maddie's house is nice. I love the terrifying photoshopped pictures that they weren't trying to make funny, but they're hilarious. They might be the best part of the game. Maddie's house and the studio are big enough, but like they just don't have the same personality that we see in a lot of other locations, like even early ones. I feel like they could have added more here. The one location that they did excellently is Rick Arlen and his office, and the area around his office, like the hallway going to his office. You can tell, like, he's kind of built up as, like, you know, he's a talent agent. He's, you know, that's supposed to be a glamorous position, but the closer you get to him and the more you snoop around, the more you find, just from the location, that things are not going well for him, that he is, like, he's having financial trouble, and that really is important to his character, and the location shows that off as pretty neat. But other than that location, just not very standout. It functions well, but it's not an exciting place to be. It's not somewhere I think that I would want to visit in real life. Now, in 30th place, we've got another one that will probably surprise a few people, and I apologize, but in 30th place, we've got Captain's Cove Amusement Park. And I promise I'll stop talking about wasted potential soon. I know I sound like a broken record going over and over again, but an amusement park could have been the most interesting location for a Nancy Drew game ever. If this was pulled off correctly, it would have been at least top 10, but it unfortunately wasn't. I mean, it doesn't feel too much like an amusement park. Like, you see the rides, or some of the rides, you get to see, like, I think it's 3 of them, 3 or 4, but you don't get to ride any other than the carousel, and you have the midway which you go on, which is just like a small arcade, which that's nice. I mean, the mini games are fun and all that, but there's not a lot to explore here. You just have the offices of the characters you have to talk to, the hotel, and then the roller coaster, carousel, and the haunted house. And actually, I think the biggest disappointment was the roller coaster, because that's really built up in the, like, opening letter and all that, talking about how the roller coaster stopped suddenly, and now somebody is trying to sue for, you know, they said they got whiplash and stuff like that. That makes it seem like a very important location, but after you get in there and look around once, there's no reason to go back. There's nothing there. Which, that, you know, it would be neat if you would actually get to ride the rides. I understand the technological limitations of the time, like they couldn't do that animation, but still, just being able to explore a little bit more of the park would be nice. Like, you even see in the ads, or the posters, I guess, in Joy Trent's office, all these different rides that look so cool that you're not allowed to look at, and it's just, this is the biggest example of wasted potential in my opinion, or one of the biggest. We'll get to the maybe even with this one in a few entries. I'm sure you'll hear me complain about that too, but I mean, it's a decent idea. It's an excellent idea, actually. I just really wish it would have been pulled off better. In 29th place, we have it's possibly the prettiest location, or one of the prettiest locations that are in any of the games, which is kind of crazy. Like, how could it be this low on the list? But New Zealand, from the Shattered Medallion, it all feels so fake, which really is its downfall, I think. The whole time, I mean, you're on a TV show, so that's why it feels fake, but the whole time you look at this stuff and you're like, wow, that's beautiful, and then you look closer and it's just been placed there for you to have another puzzle. And the Pacific Run, or whatever it's called, I think it's Pacific Run, that has to be the most boring reality show ever. I'm not a fan of reality TV, it's just not my thing, but even if I was, I don't know if I would want to watch this, because reality TV is all about, like, the competition, and they've got challenges and stuff like that, and the challenges in the Shattered Medallion are just, like, picking flowers and stuff, which they have to do stuff like that for a Nancy Drew game. They can't have, like, a bunch of platforming and stuff in a Nancy Drew game. It wouldn't fit. But the New Zealand... the idea of the reality TV show really does not fit as well as you would think with Nancy Drew, and that's really reflected in the location. I'd say the best part of the game in general is when you get to go in the behind the scenes type area where you're not supposed to be. That is the only part of it that feels genuine, because that's the only place where you know that it's actually not real. Coming up in 28th place, we have Salem from Midnight in Salem, and if I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm surprised it's up this high. Like, I wasn't expecting it to be up this high, but that's the only game I've only played once, so maybe, maybe I'm biased by my lack of remembrance or something like that, but I don't know. I just feel like there wasn't much there. It kind of felt like a show of what it could be, which, I mean, that kind of describes the game in general. I don't want to get on to that, because, there's a lot of complaining about Midnight in Salem. It probably doesn't deserve all the complaining it gets, but the location, in my opinion, because that's what we're talking about, the locations, it just feels like it's big, and it's supposed to be lively, and there are a bunch of people walking around in the town square, which is very nice. Like, I think they should do that in future games, but it also, at the same time, it feels lifeless. And like I said, it's the game felt very, like, I don't want to call it a disappointment, because we have a new Nancy Drew game that's excellent, but at the same time, it just wasn't what we expected. And I think the big thing about this location is it was really built up to be about the Hawthorne house, which was burnt down. And, I mean, you get to explore around there a little bit, but it's really understated. You spend more time in the town, and you spend more time in the Perry's house, which, the Perry's house is great. I love the Perry's house. Especially, I don't want to get into spoilers, so skip ahead if you haven't played the game, but part of the way through, like, the outside of the house is vandalized by townspeople who really don't like the Perrys. They're very suspicious of them. They think that May Perry started the fire, and that's a really interesting way of showing the story through the location. Like, before it's even talked about, you figure out that these people are not well liked in this town because of some issue in the past, which then you later get to talk about, but it's neat that the location alludes to that. I'm sure that I have to talk about the beginning. Austria deserved better. Austria is a very, very beautiful country. It's an interesting country, lots of history and stuff. It's a shame that the little bit of a Nancy Drew game that takes place in Austria is possibly, not even possibly, I think it's the worst bit of Nancy Drew we've ever gotten. That whole prologue in the castle, it doesn't need to be there, and it's goofy, and the one puzzle that's there is very bad in my opinion. I'm not trying to be overly negative, but that whole Austria thing is so poorly done. No, the location's really one room and then a set path through a forest that you have to go through. I've been complaining about this for way too long. I feel bad for complaining so much, but the Austria thing is why I thought this would be lower down on the list. But anyway, moving on to number 27. Now at number 27 we have Beach Hill Museum and the outer DC area from Secret of the Scarlet Hand. I'll be honest, it really hurts me to put this down this low, because I absolutely love Beach Hill, and that is a museum that I would love to go to, like, in real life, and I know they were kind of playing off of the Smithsonian a little bit, because Smithsonian's in DC, but, Beach Hill is excellent, and I loved Beach Hill when I was younger. Like, I would replay this game just to walk around Beach Hill, because it was so interesting. The temple is so well done, but I have to admit, the other locations in the area feel empty. This is the other one I said was a big perpetrator, I guess, or culprit of having very, very wasted potential. Like, Washington, D.C. could have been so much more. It's really a shame that all we get is the museum and then Nancy's Hotel, which has a couple frames, and then the couple offices and the hospital, which are all just one room. So it feels so small, and really it's a big city, and it feels tiny. The museum, like I said, is excellent. I love the temple and the way it progresses as you get further through the game. That's excellent. Everything else, not so excellent. In 26th place, we've got another one that I'm pretty sure a lot of people will want to argue with me about. Icicle Creek Lodge from the White Wolf of Icicle Creek. I do not like Icicle Creek. I know a ton of people love Icicle Creek, but for me, it just feels too hostile. I know they were going for cold, and they did cold excellently, but it just feels too hostile, too tedious a little bit. Like, I know this doesn't have to do with the location, but the cooking and stuff, like the tediousness of that, or tedium, I don't know what the word is. The bit of that, where you do that over and over and over again, is only amplified by the fact that whenever you leave the lodge and go walking out into the surrounding Canadian area, the walking to get anywhere takes forever. And I know they did that on purpose to make it seem like you're going far from the lodge, and to make it seem like, you're actually at risk of freezing to death. But it kind of... I don't like to consider myself an impatient person, but it really got me, like, a little bit frustrated with going back and forth to, like, Trapper Dan's Needle, to the lodge, to the shack out in the middle of nowhere, to the ice pond, to the blown up, I don't know what kind of, I think it was the bunkhouse. It's just, it doesn't speak to me. I don't know. I'd say that I don't like snowy locations that much, or snowy games. I love the snow, not snowy games, but I have, like, the other snowy games way higher up on this list, so I don't know what it is about this game, but I really, really can't stand the location. In 25th place, we've got the Golden Gardenia, which is the bed and breakfast from Message in a Haunted Mansion. And I have to say, I think that the Golden Gardenia is one of the best scary environments that we've had in a Nancy Drew game. They did a good job with the atmosphere, and it's right up there with at least Thornton Hall, if not the Rheacon. The biggest downfall for this area is there's no outside area, and I mean, I understand it's a Victorian mansion and they didn't really need an outside, but it also ends up feeling just a little bit small, and there are lots of doors you can't go in. Overall, like, each room feels different, which is excellent. Like, they did a great job. I love Nancy's room, in particular, the Chinese room, which, of course, you've got a bunch of the endgame puzzles there, not to get into spoilers, that have to all deal with the Chinese language, or Hanzi, I think it is. But then, and the saloon is very unique, and Abby's room is very unique as well. But overall, it's so small that it ends up feeling a little bit cramped, even though there are some interesting locations mixed in. In 24th place, I put the amphitheater and museum from Labyrinth of Lies. In hindsight, I actually probably should have placed this lower than Message in a Haunted Mansion, or maybe even White Wolf of Icicle Creek. The location itself looks stunning, and it seems at first to be like very well designed, and the visual design is excellent. But the reason that I don't really like this location that much is just because of how nonsensical it is. There are spots that just don't make sense for the context, like the actual fire and lava in the Tartarus section. I think it's the Tartarus section of the theater set. There should not be fire on a theater set. There's never been fire on a theater set. The secret passageway from the museum going to the hidden workshop that's built into the theater set, it's all just crazy and off the walls, and while it's fun to explore, it really does not make sense in the context of the mystery. Coming in 23rd place is Scotland from The Silent Spy. Now, this isn't saying that Scotland is a bad location. In fact, it's an excellent location, and it's very beautiful. They did a great job with the animation, but it doesn't feel like Scotland, if you know what I'm saying. It feels like it could have been anywhere, other than Loch Lomond, which does give off some of the beautiful area of Scotland. You get to see some of that. Other than that, it's a hotel, it's a train station, it's a restaurant, and it's a house. There's not a lot of regional designs. The puzzles reflect the location more than the actual location does, which it feels weird saying that. But overall, good, lots of potential, but not well executed in my opinion. Coming in at number 22, we have the Royal Palladium Theater from the final scene. Now, I really wanted this to be higher. I tried to get this higher, but when my final ranking came out, I just kept putting things above it, and I kept moving it up and down and up and down. I personally think that the final scene and its location are absolutely brilliant, but looking at it objectively, I have to admit that there isn't a whole lot there. It's a very small location, and what they did with it, the secret passageways are brilliant, and the feeling of dilapidation makes you feel uncomfortable. You feel like this theater is about to be demolished. It's falling apart. It's been falling apart for years, and it makes you feel claustrophobic in a way, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I can see why lots of people have issues with this location, but I personally think that it pulled off the vibes excellently. I think it should be higher, but it just can't compare with some of the other locations we've got on this list. In 21st place, we have Titusville from The Secret of the Old Clock. I think that Titusville is very good at what it does. It tried to get kind of it's not a serious game, so it tried to get the goofy, summer, happy aesthetic mixed with the 30s. Yeah, it was the 30s, and it does a great job of that. Really the only thing bringing this back is how small it is, it's kind of what I said about the final scene, but you have the whole large town, and there are really only 3 places you can stop at, and they're all one room. And then, of course, you have the Lilac Inn in Richard Topham's house, all of which are absolutely brilliantly designed, in my opinion. I just wish that there could have been more, especially with locations that you visit in the town. I was honestly very pleasantly surprised by Waverly Academy when I played it the first time. The other school that is featured in the Nancy Drew games was way down at the very bottom of our list. It was not interesting at all. So when Waverly Academy, making it this high surprised me. But I remember the first time playing it, absolutely loving this location and honestly wishing that there was a school like that in our area. I wouldn't want to go there, probably, because the people there are absolutely vicious. Obviously, there's, blackmail and mystery and all that. But it's such a beautiful school. I like the wood, the woodwork, and the library. The library, I could spend forever in there. And I think that they just did a good job of changing the aesthetic of each student's room to match their character, and overall it's just a brilliantly designed school, and they took something with not a lot of potential and made it brilliant. Coming in at number 19, we have yet another location I really wanted to be higher. I fought to make it higher, and still it ended up clear down in 19th place. We've got Moon Lake State Park from Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake. I think as far as forests go, this is the best forest location in any of the Nancy Drew games. The forest and the maze is so good actually, that they tried to replicate it in another location that we'll have later on the list. I'm talking about how great it is, but it's been passed up by something that did something similar. But everything about this location is brilliant. I actually don't think I have anything bad to say about Moon Lake State Park. You've got the ranger station, which gives you all your information you need. It's not the most exciting, but it works well enough to get the educational part through. And then you've got M's Emporium, which is, just a fun little shop out of the way. Emily's a colorful personality. She makes that, she fills up that room with her personality. You can tell it was designed for her. And then, of course, you have the forest maze, which I already said is brilliant. And then you have Mickey Malone's graveyard and cabin in the woods. And that's really where I think it shines, because you've been exploring this location for hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, and then you find this series of tunnels under the cabin, under the graveyard, and it's like a whole new area opened up. You've got the speakeasy, you've got the villain's lair. I don't want to get into spoilers, but there's so much that opens up later, and it breathes new life into it, and I feel like all of it was just executed perfectly, and I really wish this was higher up on the list, but other games have just used their locations even better. Coming up in 18th place, we have River Heights from Alibi and Ashes. In hindsight, I honestly think that I would have put this lower on the list, but seeing as I didn't, and I've already recorded the first half of the list, here we go. River Heights is exactly how I pictured Nancy Drew's hometown, which I think is why it got up there. Nancy Drew's house in particular is so homey, it's so happy, could spend forever just in Nancy's house. It's one of the nicest locations that they've ever designed. The only downfall to this location is the town, for being, it is a small town, but for being an entire city, it feels very small. And maybe that's the vibes that they were going for, but you can only stop at maybe 5 locations. I haven't sat down to count. I should have before I recorded this, but it's very good, but it's down lower on the list because it could have been better. Now, in 17th place, we have Thornton Hall from The Ghost of Thornton Hall. I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a hot take. I know that there are a lot of people that really like Thornton Hall, and you're like, why isn't it top 10? And honestly, it could be at least top 15. But I feel like with this location, compared to other scary Nancy Drew games, this location was trying too hard to be scary. All of it is the same grim tone, which, I mean, that's fine. It's pretty well done, honestly. But it all looks a little bit samey. It's all foggy, it's all run down, it's all gray and brown. And it mirrors the story and the mystery very well, but it's not someplace I would like to visit. It's not a pleasant location at all. Coming up in 16th place, we have something kind of same as Thornton Hall, another scary location. We have Bruno Bellay's house in New Orleans from Legend of the Crystal Skull. And it kind of hurt me to put this far down, because going back and replaying this game, it is honestly, there isn't another location like this. The gardens are excellent, they're very moody, but somehow peaceful at the same time. And then you've got New Orleans, which is crazy and beautiful. The curio shop is excellent. I used to spend tons of time in the curio shop just trying to escape from Bruno Bellay's creepy house when I was a kid. And of course then you have the cemetery, which is pretty big plot point, and cemetery is excellently designed with all the little goofy tombstones and all that. The only thing that brings this location down is inside at Bruno Bellay's house. And some people may say that this is the strong point of the location, but for me, it's really what brings it down. Inside, it is just so dark. It is so difficult to see in this house, and you miss things because you're just trying to see through the darkness. And I understand, the power went out, they're going for the dark, creepy vibe, but they went just a little bit too far when you're inside. In 15th place, we've got Deception Island from Danger on Deception Island. Now, I'm a bit torn on this. I know everybody else I know, and everybody I've heard in the community absolutely loves Deception Island, and I can see its greatness. I used to love the moody vibe with the fog and the lighthouse, and it's very well executed, but now I just don't like it, and I can't tell you why, because I honestly don't know why I don't like this location. But I can see the greatness, I can feel the greatness, I understand the mood and how it reflects the mystery, but I just cannot get into Deception Island. Coming up in 14th place, we've got Castle Fenster from The Captive Curse. Now, I can go on forever about how much I like this game and how underappreciated it is, because nobody talks about this game, and I don't know why. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But I don't think it would be as good for me without the location that it's set in. Castle Fenster and the forest around it is brilliant. I said I liked the forest from Moon Lake. They saw that people liked the forest from Moon Lake, and they did something very similar outside of Castle Fenster. I don't like the forest as much outside Castle Fenster, but still, it's very well executed with the whole maze and the monster sightings in the woods. But on top of the woods, if it was just the woods, it'd be way far down. The big part about this is the castle, and even the security booth, which kind of breaks the illusion of, German castle. It feels so stylistic, like they actually went all out with their location, which isn't something that they do a lot of the time. Like I said, Scotland doesn't feel like Scotland. Germany feels like Germany. And they kind of went over the top on this, and it's funny because they even pointed out, they were self-aware that they might have gone a little bit too far with the German in this by having, what's his name, the Burgermeister, Karl, comment how he hates getting up every morning and putting on lederhosen, but Marcus is making him for the tourists. They've turned this creepy castle area into a tourist trap, and it works so well. And then of course you find out the history and you get into the tunnels below, which I don't like the tunnels that much, honestly. That's the only downside to this location. That's why it's in 14th place. But you find out so much of the history of this castle and where it is just from environmental storytelling, which isn't something that happens a ton in Nancy Drew games. It's more talking to suspects and looking for clues that are more like in your face. But the Captive Curse, its environmental storytelling is on point. In 13th place, we have Blackmore Manor from The Curse of Blackmore Manor. This is another one that a lot of people like, and I honestly really like this one too. I had this way higher up on the list until I actually replayed this game like maybe a month ago while I was putting this list together. It's been a long time in the making. I've been very slow, but replaying it got bumped down quite a few spots because I realized that the layout of the manor doesn't make any sense. Like, it's way smaller than it should be, if that makes sense. It feels like the entire right half, where of course the kitchen's gone, the kitchen's on fire, or Jane blew it up or something. So maybe that's where some of it went, but that's not where all of it went. There's just something off about the location. Other than the weird proportions, it's excellent. I love the way they integrated the puzzles, but the lack of, I can't think of the word, but the fact that there's something off about the castle bugged me the whole time through the last time I played it, so that kind of bumped it down quite a bit on my list. Coming in at 12th place, we have one of my favorite castles that we've ever visited in Nancy Drew, Wickford Castle from Treasure in the Royal Tower. This is probably the most nostalgic location for me. I load up the game, I start in Nancy's hotel room, and it's just beautiful. I love everything about the vibes they've got, the snowy. This isn't, I don't like Icicle Creek because that's so cold. But Wickford Castle is a perfect contrast to that. It's snowy, but it's so warm, and I love this location, but I can also see where it has its downsides. I used to get so lost in this castle because all of the hallways look the same, all of the rooms look very similar. I know it's this high up on the list because of nostalgia. I'm nostalgia biased, but it's still so enjoyable to me that I couldn't put it any lower. In 11th place, we have Paris from Danger by Design. The mystery in Danger by Design honestly did leave a lot to be desired, but that's almost completely made up for by the location. I think it might just be the animation style of Paris, but everything about Paris seems perfect to me. Honestly, it looks better to me than some of the newer games. With the music and the park with the vendors, the park with the vendors might be the best part. That, and of course you have the windmill, that's the word, and then the catacombs. It all feels very Parisian. I feel like they nailed the vibe. I've never been to Paris. I would love to go to Paris, but I feel like they did just an excellent job, and this would be a lot higher up. I know I'm not ranking this on the story, but the story and the location ended up not meshing well at all. If they had, it would be higher on the list. Starting us off with the top 10 now, we have the Tomb from Tomb of the Lost Queen. Now, I'll be honest, I really don't like this game. This is in probably my top 5 worst Nancy Drew games. I can't stand this game. I've only played through it maybe 2 or 3 times. It just feels like a drag to me. But the location, I have to admit, was pulled off excellently with what they had. The whole mystery revolves around this tomb with who's buried here, what is, what happened to the past expedition. And honestly, I feel like the sabotage mystery, or honestly, I don't even remember what the mystery is a little bit. It's been a while since I've played it. But the mystery is lost a little bit to the location. It's so exciting going through the tomb, finding new rooms, and you're finding new rooms and new locations the whole way through this game. Like, it's paced out very well with exploration. I don't want to like this location at all because I don't like the game, but it's pulled off well enough that I kind of have to like the location. I can't argue that the location is bad because I know it's really not. Now, in 9th place, we have Castle Malloy from The Haunting of Castle Malloy. This is probably the most atmospheric location. This and Thornton Hall are pretty interchangeable for atmospheric, but this Ireland and the area around the castle in particular are so perfect. Like, just walking around used to creep me out when I was a kid. And it all feels, it's got the game has a strange vibe to it, because it's scary and goofy, and it's kind of split in half. You go to the pub, or the non-alcoholic drink pub, I don't remember what they call it, Screaming Banshee, and that's all very cheery, and it's a nice break, but as soon as you go outside, you feel chilly again. And then the design of the castle itself also is so ominous. Half of the castle is missing. You open a door, there's nothing there, just straight down to the ground, and it startles you. I like Wickford Castle better, actually, but in terms of location and matching the vibe of the story, Castle Malloy and the surrounding area is it's such a perfect match that it would be a crime not to put it in the top 10. Coming in 8th place, we have one of the best tropical locations in a Nancy Drew game, Hawaii, from Creature of Kapu Cave. And a lot of people were going to fight with me on this one too, and yes, I am biased, I'm blinded by nostalgia, I'm sorry, but I could hang out on the beach at Big Island Mike's forever. Nancy's portion of the game isn't as exciting, although the Healy is excellent. The Healy is one of the best places we've ever visited. But where it really shines is the Hardy Boys segment. Big Island Mike's and the beach and collecting shells and fishing. It's the most relaxed location we've ever had in a Nancy Drew game, I think. It feels very peaceful, it feels very happy, and I know I already said I'm biased. This was my very first Nancy Drew game, so I've got a lot of memories coming back to this, but this location is just so good to me, and the story is kind of rubbish, if I'm being honest, but the location fits so well. In 7th place, this is going to be a very hot take, so I'm expecting to get some angry comments about this. But 7th place, I've got Dread Isle from Ransom of the Seven Ships. This is possibly the worst Nancy Drew game. They've taken it off the store for reasons I won't get into. Almost nobody likes this game. But what it's lacking in story and overabundance of puzzles, honestly, really, the exploration is brilliant. It's between the exploration and the music, I wish we would have gotten a different game set here, because you've got the golf course where you go around to all of the different areas. You get to, use the metal detector on the beach. You get to go on a scavenger hunt. You get to go sailing and scuba diving, and I feel like they did the best they could utilizing this location with the story, and it makes a great treasure hunt. Honestly, it's just the rest of the game is awful. I couldn't put it any higher. I wish that we could have gotten a better game here. It would be at least top 5. Coming in 6th place, we have Venice from the Phantom of Venice. While I was recording this, I was reading over the list, and honestly, I moved this up. I switched some stuff around so I could move this up. I don't know what it was doing so low. Venice is one of the best international mysteries in terms of just nailing the vibe of the city. Venice is somewhere I've honestly always dreamed of going. I hope I'll get there sometime in my life, but even if I don't, I've got this game. The location meshes well with the mystery too. I can't imagine the art thefts, the heists anywhere else other than Venice, just because it was pulled off so well in this. It's a strange game with all the police stuff and the spy stuff. Honestly, it's a better spy game than the Silent Spy, which is kind of ironic. But the Venice is just so beautiful, and all the places you can visit, traveling in the gondolas, they absolutely nailed it. Alright, now we're in the top 5, and coming in 5th place, we have the Canute Farmhouse and Oklahoma, I think it is, from Trail of the Twister. Now, it's very flat, I know, and a lot of people don't like this game. I love this game, but they absolutely nailed the aesthetic of the Midwest. I don't know how many of you have been to the Midwest, but I've been there once or twice, and honestly, there is a lot of corn. There's a lot of just flat, look at the plains, nothing for miles, and they nailed the vibe in this game, and I can't explain why I like it so much, honestly. It feels like it should be a boring location, but instead of boring, it feels so homey. It feels so peaceful and dangerous at the same time, which is exactly what they were going for. It's just nearly perfect. Now, in 4th place, I had to keep my bias in check and move this down a few spots. In 4th place, we've got the train and Copper Gorge and the mine from Last Train to Blue Moon Canyon. I think that it's brilliant. The train, every character has their own train car that matches their character. I especially love Tino Bauducci's setup in Jake Hurley's office. He's, made himself at home. You've got Lori in the caboose. You've got, the full steampunk room, which is a little crazy. But the reason why this is so good to me is because the game gives you time to get used to the train. You've been in the train for probably 2/3 of the game, and then suddenly you're sent into this town of Copper Gorge, and you've got 2-3 more areas that you can explore, and it's just absolutely brilliant. The reason I had to move this farther down, I wanted it to be top 3. I wanted it to be in 2nd place, but the only thing bringing it down is the mine is so anticlimactic. And not to get into spoilers, this isn't a big spoiler, but the thing with the lizards, if you know, the thing with the lizards, it's so goofy. I don't know what they were thinking. They could have done so much better than colored lizards, and it just kind of bombed the ending of this game, which is almost perfect. Now, in the big 3, we've got Skiprot from Sea of Darkness. I think I actually did that accent right. It wasn't right, but it was close. I'll take it. Skiprot is I was so unexpected. I didn't expect to like this location. I've said before, I don't like snowy games that much. But Sea of Darkness pulled it off so well. Iceland is brilliant, and it being, way up north, it's constantly in a state of darkness during winter, which lends itself very well to this game because you can have the day-night cycle without having to change anything, and it keeps the mood. And the ice caves, I get lost in the ice caves, but I honestly don't mind because they're so well designed. The warmth of going into the Misty Skip and the Hirlikide and everything, like the Hirlikide and all of its secrets too opening up. I was so pleasantly surprised by this game. I wasn't expecting it to come out as well as it did. Coming in as the runner-up for best location in the Nancy Drew game, we have Kyoto, Japan from Shadow at the Water's Edge. I could go on forever about how well this location meshes with the story of the game. Honestly, it does a better job of meshing with the story than any other game. Honestly, this could have been in first place, but I'm a bit biased and it got bumped down. First and second place are pretty much interchangeable, whichever you like better. But the whole game plays with the theme of tradition versus progress, and the split, the contrast between the Ryokan and modern Kyoto, Japan. It's so massive and it fits so well with the story. It fits the motives of all the characters and it feels complete. The location is probably one of the most perfect I've seen in a game. Honestly, the Ryokan, as a side note, is unintentionally terrifying for me. Like, they do scary things. Like, there's some jump scares, there's stuff like that. But other than that, it's a peaceful location. But that peace after the scare makes it scarier for me than Bruno Burlet's house or Thornton Hall or Blackmoor Manor. The calm in the storm makes it scarier than just straight storm, if that makes sense. Overall, very well-rounded location, fits perfectly with everything the story tried to do, fits the music, fits the characters, everything is brilliant. It just got barely outdone by one location. And that location, first place for best Nancy Drew location, probably of all time, is Shadow Ranch from Secret of Shadow Ranch. I struggled with where to put this. I knew it had to be top 3, but finally it just triumphed over the rest. You can't beat Shadow Ranch, and Dry Gulch, and Mary Yazzie's, and the Arches. It's just so excellently done. I think this is the one place that everyone agrees on is perfect. And it mixes with the story, it mixes with the vibes they're putting out, and it's just as good as Japan, but I'm biased towards Shadow Ranch. Shadow Ranch is so pleasant. It's so happy. I would rather visit Shadow Ranch than Japan, and that's why it pulls out in first place instead of second. It's just, it gives you feelings that I don't think any of the rest of the games have ever accomplished. I don't think they'll ever match Shadow Ranch. Going back to Shadow Ranch feels like going home, and it's for that reason, honestly, that it is in first place. The story is excellent, or how it mixes with the story. The secret areas are excellent. The little extra spots you get to go, like Mary Yazzie's store and the ghost town, and even the cliff dwellings at the end. Spoiler alert, I'm sorry if you haven't played it. it's all perfect. There's nothing more to say about it. And that wraps up every Nancy Drew location ranked from worst to best. I'm honestly so impressed if you sat through that whole video. That was so long. I'm sorry it took me so long to get this out. I've been working on it for forever, and school started, band started, I got busy, and honestly, this whole video was recorded over a period of about a month and a half, so it may be a bit inconsistent. I apologize. I want to try to keep to an upload schedule, but where I am right now, I kind of can't. I hope you enjoyed this video, though. I hope I didn't. I started rambling towards the end. I got excited. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because I'm planning more like this. I've got some stuff in the works that I've been working on, haven't gotten it out. And if you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know. I want to hear your thoughts. I love talking about stuff like this with other people. I would love to have a discussion with you in the comments. So be sure to comment and let me know what you want me to do next. Thanks, and I guess I'll see you in the next one.